films from this little sliver of time until the last 2 years, I would say, in depth. There are many films I had missed, and it's not a film that I've rewatched much.
Well, with that in mind, I would like to ask, what other movie would choose to show us, if not this one?
Well, I also thought about some of these Wellman ones. Some of the ones I just mentioned, Wild Boys of the Road. I mean, maybe Three on a Match is good. Three on a Match is a movie that I've heard of over the years, but I'd never seen it until the last couple of years. But Wild Boys of the Road, that's one of my very favorites. What the William Wellman movies. I really didn't know them. I knew the Oxbow incident. That's maybe 10 years later. But his best work is this period. Another interesting thing about it is it's a period when, because they've been making silence, they were made on stages, but they were made on location all the time. And the 30s, especially the early 30s, you get this. There's a documentary aspect, not so much in Sadie McKee, but in many of the Wellman movies, they're on location, and you really get this feeling of life in that period, in that time. That's part of what the movies capture. This one, Other Men's Women, James Cagney has a supporting role in it, it begins with a long take that this train is passing through this town, and there's a cafe there, and he jumps off the beginning of the train and goes in and places his order, and we can see the train going by outside. She brings him his drink and his snack. He quickly eats, and then the train finishes. He goes out and jumps back on the last car of the train, and it's real. It's something that is really happening right there while they're filming it. James Cagney has a scene where he runs the length of the train along the roof of the moving train towards the camera. He jumps one car to another. It's like Jackie Chan or something like that. It's something you wouldn't see in a movie from the 40s, for instance. And certainly, you feel the reality of the period, and yeah.
Hi, Wes.
Hello.
It was really nice to meet you. And I'd like to ask you, this period of time seems to me has a lot of strong women, a lot of them. As you said, Barbara Stanwyck, Betty Davis, Joan Crawford. Do you think they lost something in the way? That maybe then in the 40s, 50s, they became moms, and then in the 70s they're kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely some political shift, especially after the war in America, and somewhere along the way it shifts towards Doris Day, and Doris Day would not have had a career in these movies, at least not playing the persona that we came to know her. I think that's obviously that's
Joan
part.
Crawford becomes a nurse, so she has all this life ahead.
Yes, yeah.
She doesn't necessarily marry French. Was that his name? I don't know.
French Chaudon.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You're right. That's right. She's more free. By the way, mentioning there's another Wellman that's called Night Nurse. That's one I strongly recommend. Is that one Stanwyck? Do you remember, Jaman? Yeah. It's Stanwyck. It's Barbara Stanwyck, Joan Blondell. Clark Gable is a villain, a very small role, and I think that the story is that he made such an impression in his little role that he was made into a leading man on the next film he did. But yes, I think what you observed is definitely true. This is a special period for women's roles in movies.
And they're all so strong.
Yeah.
Even her mother, she plays this small part, but
yeah,
you get to notice her.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of the woman who brings them into the rooming house. But she's somebody who's in many of these films. You see her in film after film.
Psychic. She's always a sidekick friend.
Yes,
Yeah.
and who's smart and funny, and she plays that same character. It's probably her act that she was doing on stage. I think there's one called Heroes for Sale. I think maybe she's in Heroes for Sale. It's another Wellman. Yeah, but yeah, there's lots of great roles for women.
Hello, Wes. It's nice talking to you. My question is not about that movie specifically, which I really enjoyed, but it's about your movies. The question I brought is about the relationship between cinema and theater, which is something I really think it's in your job because your movies always remind me like a theater being filmed like from one point to another, because everything is so meticulously organized and planned, like it was an actual play. At least they appear to me like that. And even though cinema and theater are intrinsically related, I think as a director you put yourself in a really special position. So I would like to ask for you, what are the main similarities and also differences between these two, like cinema and theater, regarding your specific filmography?
Yeah, thank you. Well, you know, I've had one thing is I've always loved going to the theater. I like I'm sort of, it's exciting to me to go to a bad play. I just like the experience of you know, being in the presence of actors playing out a story for you right in front of you in the room. And I've often thought I'd like to do one, but I always find a reason not to go very far with it. Eventually I realized I think what I would rather do is I'd rather put scenes in my movies that take place in the, you know, I've had scenes I've had plays in the films, and you know, I think I'm kind of drawn to some techniques that tend to be ways that you sort of get your special effects right there on the set, the way you would in the theater. You know, this scene has this wonderful, wild thing, which is this hospital scene at the end, where it's all glass, and it's you know, it's like Christmas outside, and it's really, and you know, there's only one way you do that in a movie like this. You know, they build that whole exterior. Must be 10 guys, you know, shaking snow on the thing, and it's theatrical, and it's really magical. Yeah, and I think that, you know, I'm personally just drawn to that, and I think probably I'm happier doing the theater in a movie than, I feel a connection to the, you know, that life.
Mr. Anderson, Saturday after the Gold of Naples, we were talking about co-writing present in the Italian neo-realist films, and you talked about people like Cesare Zavattini and Fellini writing together each other's films. I believe you kind of use the same process when writing with people like Owen Wilson, Roman Coppola. For you, is co-writing just another pair of eyes upon building a story, or is it something else, something more?
Well, for me, and I think this is, you know, it's not something that you can, it's so personal, and it's totally different from one collaboration and another, I think. But for me, there are people, you know, I've thought about people who I would like to work with, just writers who I admire, and I realized, well, I could not have the collaboration I want with this writer. You know, if you know, let's say you want Tom Stoppard, you know, who's one of my heroes, to help you with the movie. Well, what you're doing is Tom Stoppard's going to say, "Tell me what you have in mind, and I'll send you something in 6 weeks." For me, and he would send you something great. But for me, what I look for in a writing collaboration is somebody who will just sit and talk with me. And it helps me to kind of discover what I have in mind. You know, sometimes it's my collaborators who help me have my own ideas. It's almost like performing for them and performing for each other. And that's really what it is for me. I can't get very far if I don't have a sense of what the movie is kind of supposed to be. But it's very helpful to me to have somebody inspiring to talk with about it. Even if I do the actual writing. The last film that I did with my friend Hugo and I worked on it together, well, Hugo had many great and funny lines. He has his own life experiences that brought a whole kind of depth to it. But the best thing was that he's an old friend, and the two of us sitting in a room together, something starts happening where we feel free with our ideas together, and you know, that's the way I like. I mean, I think I think that's the way, that was the Italian way, and you know, it's also the TV way. You know, it's Hollywood is filled with rooms of writers, you know, I enjoy that.
And did you when you write your dialogues, the scenes and everything, it's exactly what you want, that there is no changing that an actor can bring during in the set or something. They are really precise and exactly, because your dialogues are very, very precise.
Well,
and do you accept after changing during the shooting, or is it exactly what you wrote?
Well, often it's, you know, usually the dialogue, first of all, I don't usually do, they tend to be shorter scenes, they tend to be sort of focused. I mean, over the years, whatever way it's happened without me having any sense of it, I feel like I've cut more. With every movie, it's sort of like I kind of edit myself down more and more in the writing process. It usually doesn't come up that we want to change it on the set. When there's something special that happens, or an idea, I mean, you know, sometimes there's something that I think, you know, it would be, sometimes there's something, a logic issue or something like that, and I don't like it when that happens. I want to have solved those things before, because I feel like I'm better when I have time, and I like to write and rewrite and refine, generally we do kind of stick to the script, and over the years, more so. When we made the first movie I did, Bottle Rocket, this one, Owen Wilson and I wrote it together. Well, Owen was playing this character in the story, big part, and he could write on camera. You know, he could, sometimes we would do a scene and we would talk about it, and then he would just think of something in the moment. And he would do, and sometimes those were great, you know, those were his best performances in these scenes. But I haven't had that happen in other films, you know. I think about, you know, I did one movie with Gene Hackman, and Gene is somebody who I think can be very improvisational, but I don't think that one interesting to me was he didn't love the part. He didn't really feel comfortable with the part. He didn't like the man, and I had sort of forced him to do the movie. And he often wanted to change it because he would say it doesn't make any sense. You know, there was one point in the story, in the movie, where he says he's supposed to say he says, I think Danny Glover says to him. He said, "I know you think I'm an asshole." He says, "I don't think you're an asshole, I just think you're kind of a son of a bitch." And Gene said, to me, it doesn't make sense. An asshole and a son of a bitch is the same thing. And I said, "I know, I think, but it's funny if it's the thing." And Gene said, "Well, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know what and then Danny Glover said, I don't know, Gene. I kind of think it means you're a bad guy, but you're not such a bad guy. I like it." And Gene says, "Well, the audience isn't going to understand it, but fuck them, I guess."
Nice, Gene.
Questions there and there, if there, plenty.